We're a manufacturing company. What we do is we make wind turbines. So our part of the business is starting from R&D. We've got about 3,000 people around the world doing research and development on wind turbines. And most of them are in Singapore, northern Denmark, and here in North America we've got about 100 people doing R&D in Houston, a few folks in Massachusetts as well doing R&D. So we design from scratch, we do our own engineering, we do our own manufacturing. So I'll talk to you a little bit about where our factories are and how we produce, but we make our own equipment with one exception, which I'll talk a little bit about. We do, obviously, our own sales. We do our own transport and logistics. In some cases, we do the construction for our customers. In other cases, we just work with the customer while they or their contractors do the construction. And then we do sales and service. And those of you who are interested in wind careers, that's actually where a lot of the careers are. Right? After we sell a turbine, it's got a 2-year warranty, right, where we are on the hook, so to say. But we want to have a business relationship with that piece of equipment for the next 18, 28 years of its operating life. So service is a big part of our business. And I think what you'll see if you start looking at careers in the wind business is that, like a lot of industries, up until a few years ago, most wind turbine manufacturers didn't pay a lot of attention to service. Right? Providing aftermarket service was just something that you did, because if you want to sell a wind turbine, you got to reassure the customer that if it breaks, someone's there to fix it. And the way Vestas has always seen it is that there's a much more important opportunity with service, and we've always been interested, and we've always wanted to maintain that relationship. So we have a much larger in-house service fleet, technician fleet, than some of the other players in the industry, but that is starting to change. And I think as the economy started getting shaky in the last couple of years, and companies were maybe not selling as many new wind turbines as they thought they would, they started seeing service as a way to keep their revenue flat, to keep the business going on even when people weren't buying as much new equipment. So a lot of manufacturers now getting interested in service. We've always been interested in service, and we always have a need for wind technicians, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So where we are globally, well, that's a picture of the map, and we're pretty much everywhere. We've installed wind turbines on 6 continents. I think 60 countries, about 60 different countries at this point. We've got 33 factories around the world. In terms of revenue, we're about a 7 billion euro a year company. So call it about $9 billion US per year in revenue for Vestas. And let's talk a little bit about the manufacturing. Those of you who have lived here in Portland for a while probably remember in the early 2000s, we were talking about, well, maybe Vestas is going to build a factory in Portland. And it didn't happen. And I'll tell you a little bit about that story. It really goes back to what Chance was talking about incentives, right? A big part of how wind power has developed in North America and really everywhere is through government support. And in the early 2000s, frankly, our executives looked at the US and said, we're just not sure America has the will, or Canada has the will to make this industry happen here, and we're not going to plow $1 billion into factories until we are sure. And so we backed off the idea of building factories in North America in the early 2000s. We said our sales headquarters can be in Portland. That's where we're going to do business for North America, but we're going to manufacture in Europe the way we always have. By about 2007, we changed our mind. And we changed our mind for a few reasons. One is the dollar was really strong, and building stuff in Europe or in Asia, and paying for it in euros and then getting paid in dollars, and it just wasn't working for us. The other thing is fuel prices started to go up. So if you're building big hunks of steel in Germany or Denmark and then shipping them over to the US, that transport cost will kill you, right? And building closer to your market turns out really to matter. And the third thing was really the market question. It was our feeling that the fundamentals were coming together strongly enough that we decided it was time to invest in North America. So we put $1 billion into manufacturing. We built a cluster of factories in Colorado. And when you talk about wind turbines, in terms of major components, you're really talking about blades. That's what we started with. Make our own blades in Colorado. In fact, we're in the process of building a second Colorado blade factory to meet demand. Next thing you talk about is towers. Globally, we actually outsource a lot of our tower production, but here in North America, we built the biggest tower factory in the world, capable of producing 1,000 towers a year. You know, these segmented tubular steel towers. And then the third thing would be the nacelle, which is the big boxy thing that sits on top of the tower and holds the rotor. And we've got a nacelle assembly facility in Colorado. In a minute, I'll show you a map, and I'll show you why Colorado. The slide also mentions controllers. That's the power electronics. So we produce all this stuff globally, but our strategy today is in the region for the region. Right? You got to build close to market, because otherwise the currency fluctuation risk is real scary, and the cost of transport is real scary. Right? Because the price of oil, in our opinion, is not coming down, and that's what you need to run ships and trucks all over the world. Here's a picture of you know, some of our stuff, some of our people. And you know, in addition to the other stuff I mentioned, you know, we do have a lot of people here in North America aside from manufacturing. We've got about 1,300 people working in the U.S. and Canada on service. So this means people who are on site, maintaining, cleaning, repairing, changing the oil, cleaning the blades of wind farms that don't belong to us, they belong to our customers. And that, I guess, is something I probably should have, you know, emphasized to make clear. We don't own the wind farms that you see, you know, when you drive down the gorge, right? We don't own that equipment. We are an equipment supplier. We sell to people who develop their own projects, whether they be utilities or independent developers. We also, as I say, have R&D facilities in Houston primarily, as well as Louisville, Colorado, and Hudson, Massachusetts. We've got a sales office, as I said, here in Portland, but also in Toronto, Denver, and then a couple of folks scattered around the country independently doing sales. I guess the states where we're most active in the U.S., just in terms of where people work, would be our Colorado manufacturing cluster and our kind of sales and service headquarters here in Oregon. But as I say, we've got customers that have Vestas turbines all over the country, so we've got people all over the country on site, you know, either, you know, living there permanently or on construction crews that, you know, rotate from project to project. But again, high need for construction folks and wind technicians. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. In the lobby of our building on Southwest NATO Parkway in Portland, we've got one of our originals. You know, I talked about the V164. This, I think, was a V15 or a V22. You know, one of the original nacelles. And if when you open it up, and it's sitting there open, it kind of looks like my first car, which was a Malibu Classic, a 77 Malibu Classic. You know, there's a lot of room. You know, it's kind of big, basic, greasy equipment with, you know, like fan belts. And that's not what my car looks like today, and that's not what our turbines look like today. You know, it's no longer sufficient to, you know, have a rough mechanical sense and a background in diesel repair, you know, to go into a wind nacelle and start working. Again, these are 3 megawatt generators. For those of you, you know, that know the electricity side, you know that's a lot of current. It's very dangerous if you do it, you know, sloppily or carelessly, and we care a lot about safety. And there's a lot of power electronics, right? So these are power plants. These are not my 77 Malibu Classic. So to be a wind technician, it's not just mechanical, but it's also electronic, and it's also heavy equipment, you know, safety standards.